This video is exercises from Chapter 3, which is contribution margin and understanding break-even and target profit. So, exercise 3-1, preparing a contribution format income statement. Wheeler's Corporation most recent income statement is as follows. They had sales 8,000 units for $208,000 or $26 per unit. Variable expenses $144 or $18 per unit. Contribution margin $64,000 or $8 a unit, and fixed expenses was $56,000. Net operating income was $8,000. Required: prepare a new contribution format statement under the following conditions. Consider each case separately. So the first one we're going to do is sales volume increases by 50 units. So number one. Sales volume increases by 50 units. Okay, so now if we're going to have sales, it would be 8,050 units, which would equal 8,050 times, I'm going to use our selling price of $26 per unit. Now we have variable expenses, and that's 8,050 times $18 per unit. Then we have contribution margin, which is our sales minus our variable expenses, or 64,400. Then we have fixed expenses. This does not vary with volume, so our fixed expenses are the 56,000 that they were. So our net operating income equals 64,400 minus, so 8,400. That is our net operating income if sales increase by 50 units. Situation number 2. What if it decreases by 50 units? Okay, what if sales decreases? Sales volume decreases by 50 units. Okay, so now we're going to have sales, and that'll be 7,050 units. 7,050 times the $26 per unit. Then we're going to have variable expenses, and that is 7,050 times, actually let me change this, because it's not going to be, it's going to be 79, quick mental math. Alright, equals 7,950 times our selling price of $26 per unit. Our variable expenses, 7,950 times $18 per unit. So our contribution margin equals sales minus variable expenses, or 63,600. Fixed expenses do not change, remember, with volume. So we're going to have the same. And now we're going to have net operating income of 7,600. And situation number 3. The sales volume is 7,000 units. Sales volume is 7,000 units. So we would have sales 7,000 units equals 7,000 times our selling price, $26 per unit. We have variable expenses, which is 7,000 times $18. Contribution margin equals 56,000. Our fixed expenses are 56,000. So therefore, 7,000 units is our break even. It's the number of units we need to sell to have a profit of nothing. Or in other words, break even. That is exercise 1. Just going to save this in my answers. I'll provide the setup with the problems, but not the answers so that you can practice as well. All right, exercise 3-4. All right, last month Harrison Creations Inc. sold 40,000 units. Total sales were 300,000. Total variable expenses came from the book were 240,000 and fixed expenses were 45,000. Required, what is the company's CM contribution margin ratio? Estimate the change in the company's net operating income if they were to increase sales by 1,500. Okay, so we're going to do sales, variable expenses, fixed contribution margin, which I'm going to call from CM right from now on, fixed expenses, and net operating income. Okay. So I'm also going to call this total per unit. In order to make changes, we'll need the per unit. So they gave us in the problem that sales were 300,000. I like to format these in dollars. Sometimes I put extra zeros. And that in order to find the per unit, we take the number of sales and we divide by the number of units, which were 40,000. So the selling price is $7.50 per unit. Variable expenses were 240,000. We do the same thing. We take the variable expense total and divide by the number of units. And so our CM is, or contribution margin, is sales minus variable expenses. And per unit, it's the $7.50 minus $6. So each unit contributes $1.50 towards fixed expenses. Our net operating income in this situation is $15,000. Now, to find the contribution margin ratio, this is a ratio instead. So sales is always 100%. Fixed expenses is variable expense divided by sales, or 80%. So that means 80% of the sale goes to variable expenses. And contribution margin ratio is CM per unit divided by sales, or 20%. When you're done, should be a percentage. When you are done, your contribution margin and your variable expenses should add up to 100% because sales is 100% of sales. This is 80% of sales, and this is 20% of sales. So, in order to figure out what the change in net operating income would be if there was an increase of $1,500 in sales, we can actually save steps. We don't even need to substitute. So, number 2, increase in sales by 1,500. Okay, so we would take sales increase 1,500. We would take the CM ratio, which is 20%, and we would multiply. So estimated change in net operating income, basically 20% of the sale will go to the bottom line, or $300. So this is much easier. So once we figure out this ratio, we can go ahead and apply that to figure out what a change in increase would be. Now, in order to verify this or check our answer, we could take total sales. We could create a new contribution margin income statement. New contribution income statement. Sales, total units. So this one was 40,000. And this one was in order to figure out how many units I had, I'm going to take the original sales, I'm going to add the increase in sales and divide by our per unit price. Or we actually sold an extra 200 units. So then we have sales and this is going to compare the two income statements. And this times our selling price. Expenses. So we're taking the variable expense per unit times the number of units, and that's getting our variable expenses. So our CM, and this is just all practice, we'll use this a lot, is sales minus variable expenses. So sales minus variable expenses on the other side. And we have an increase in the contribution margin by $300. We have fixed expenses. This does not change. So our fixed expenses is 45 on each side. So therefore, our net operating income originally was 15,000, and it is now 15,300 for a change of $300. And we should check this. And they should match. So this is just proving that by taking the sales dollar increase and multiplying by the contribution margin ratio, that you would come out with the same answer as if you prepared a contribution income statement. Obviously, this step is much quicker.